There are a lot of emotions when it comes to selling or buying a house that you just don't really think about as you're getting started. And you're going to come to a certain point in the process where you're like, man, I did not realize it was going to be this emotional. And it's something that everybody goes through. I actually bought a house for myself just a little bit ago. And you know what? I went through pretty much the same emotions that everybody else does. I just knew more information, but that doesn't take away the emotional process of buying or selling a house that you're going to be going through. So we're going to be talking about that today and what the unexpected emotional highlights are for a lot of people, so you can kind of be aware of these highlights that you're going to be hitting. Before we get started though, do make sure you like this video, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and let's go and jump into today's topic. Now, the first thing that I want to highlight here is that these beats that we're going to be talking about, these mileposts in the home selling process or the home buying process, are going to hit people a little bit differently. And it really depends on your circumstances. It depends, are you excited about where you're going? Is this just kind of a move that you have to do and it's not really a move that you want to do? So how these emotional beats are going to hit you is going to be a little bit different, but these are going to be the big ones for the home selling side first that really do kind of evoke some kind of emotion. And it might be big, might be small, might be positive, might be negative, but if you're going to have something happen, it's usually going to be during these time periods that you're going to be feeling something. So the first one is just making the decision that you're going to be moving and making that commitment that you're going to make it happen. So I've been at a lot of people's kitchen tables and been talking with them about the process, working through the paperwork. I've had some people, they've been super excited. It was like the best day in their life. I've had other people that were literally breaking down and crying. But there's something about coming to that point of making a decision and committing to making this happen and signing paperwork that really brings a lot of emotions to the surface. So, if you're really conscientious and really wanting to be aware of everything that's going to be coming up, just know for some people that can be a big deal. Now, the next thing, at least for home sellers, is starting to depersonalize their home. For some people, again, this is no big deal. For other people who have lived in their house for years and years and years, they're really emotionally invested into this house. Depersonalizing it, taking down a lot of your stuff and removing a lot of signs of you having lived there, that can be a really emotional challenge. And usually I've seen this more for folks that have lived in a house for decades and they've raised their kids there. Man, that's tough, okay? So expect that if you're going to be going through that process. You've lived there for a while. I know right now you're probably thinking that can be a big deal. Start taking those pictures off the wall and start cleaning up, the little check marks on the door showing how tall the kids were. And I guarantee you that's not going to be as easy probably as you're thinking right now. The next big emotional highlight we have is when you get that notice for a showing. Like when you get that first notice for a showing that somebody wants to come and see your house, there's probably going to be a flood of doubt, of excitement, trepidation. Oh my gosh, is it going to show the way that it really needs to? And really the best way to combat this is just making sure that we've done everything that we can ahead of time and then just being confident and saying, hey, we can't do anything else and we've done our best at this point and we're just going to step away for the showing now and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So, but yes, getting that first notification of a showing, they expect some kind of emotion when you get that for the first time. Now, the second one is when we get an offer. So again, waiting to get that offer in there and finally getting it. It's kind of like the feelings that you're going to get when you get that first showing just on steroids, because now it's in writing. These are the terms that we're going to have to do in order to sell this house to these people. And it really does a good job on roiling up all those emotions for some people because it's real. Like these are, like we've got dates, we've got everything in there. And if it didn't feel real before, it definitely feels real now. After we've gone under contract, there's kind of like a couple days period of just, like you don't have to really worry about showings anymore. You feel kind of like you're a ship that's found its harbor. And, it's going to feel pretty peaceful for a couple days. Now, the step after that, though, is the inspection period, or what's officially called the due diligence period. And in this time, pretty much all the buyers are trying to do is find anything about the property that they don't like and see if they need to walk away for whatever reason. So there's going to be some anxiety for that for some people. It kind of depends on the property, just how much stuff there is and what we've negotiated ahead of time. But for most people, there's going to be a lot of anxiety attached to the inspection and the due diligence period. So, just be aware of that and just, understand that's going to be part of the process. Try not to overthink it, and, just understand when we get the list back for the stuff that they want to have taken care of, you need to just take a deep breath and understand this just their first repair, amendment, offer, ask that they are requesting. Hey, we asked that you guys do this, this, and this. We don't have to accept anything. You're still in control. This is just where we go back and forth with them now. Now, the last two beats that we really focus on for sellers is going to be, number one, the appraisal, because during the appraisal time period, you're like, oh my gosh, is this person going to come in and say the house is worth a lot more? So do we give away money? Are they going to come in and say it's worth a lot less? In which case, in practice, means we're probably going to have to come down on the price to that appraised value, because most people make their offers contingent on the property appraising for what they actually offered. So that can raise a lot of concerns. And the best thing I can say about that is that the appraiser is just going to do whatever they're going to do. Our job is to make it available, and I've done all of our research ahead of time, so there's as few of surprises along the way as possible. For me, when I've priced a property, usually it's no surprise when the appraisal comes back. It's usually right at or just a little bit above, usually like maybe $500 or something like that. It feels kind of spiteful on the part of the appraiser, really. But, usually it's really close to whatever it is that my research showed it was going to be worth. So we try to take a lot of the guessing game out of it, a lot of the anxiety for you. And the next step after that is the closing period. So when you actually go to the closing table for this time of signing, then for some people this brings a lot more emotions. For some people, though, not a whole lot, though, not as much as you would think, because they've had a couple months at this point to kind of process through all these emotions. And by the time they go to the signing table, it ain't no thing. Now, before we jump into the buyers' unexpected emotional journey that they're going to be going through, just want to let you guys know real quick, I do have a seller guide for those of you who are considering getting your homes on the market in the near future. And if that's something that would interest you, go to my website, register, and then just put seller guide in the comments section so I know what to send you. Now, let's go and talk about the emotional journey of the buyer. Now, the first thing that I see when we're working with buyers is there is a ton of information that's available out there that is really bring a lot of anxiety for a ton of people at this point. Lots of headlines, lots of clickbait stuff saying the market's crashing. You need to buy now. You need to buy in 10 years. You should have bought 20 years ago. Just all this stuff just constantly getting thrown at you. And the first thing that they're starting with is just kind of this sense of anxiety. So if you're constantly watching headlines, the first thing I would say, stop. Okay? Yes, we need to be aware of what's going on. No, we're not going to make a perfect decision. And that's just because there's pros and cons of buying or selling at any time in history. Okay, so that's number one. We need to cut out all the noise and start from a position of just looking at the facts, looking at what's in this market specifically, instead of just seeing what it is that the people in Colorado or Texas or Miami are saying that the market's going to be doing. Okay, let's focus just on what we can control. The next step after that is, once you've kind of decided we're going to start looking at this, is people who are going on Zillow, checking out homes, getting more and more excited. And this is a fun part of the process, because you start just thinking about the possibilities, and you don't have any skin in the game just yet. Now, after we've gone and sat down and we've figured out what it is that you're looking at, now things are starting to feel a little bit more real. That's bringing some emotions to the surface. You're starting to get excited, probably starting to get a little anxious, and thinking about all the possibilities. For some people, there's kind of a fear of missing out at this point, so we want to get something right now. For other people, they're going to need like a couple months of searching just to get them to that point where they're ready to pull the trigger on something. Now, one big step in this mix here is applying for the loan. For a lot of people, this is going to bring a lot of anxiety for them, just because they're so used to just instant gratification, clicking stuff, websites, a bunch of lenders to make it sound like you're going to get pre-qualified just by entering in a couple boxes. That's not how it works. You need to make a full loan application, or at least a loan application, and be able to prove that you're actually who you are, and prove that you actually have the income and all the assets that you say you do. So for some people, this really makes it start to feel real, because your finances are suddenly coming under a microscope. For some people, this brings some anxiety because they don't really like other people knowing what's their financial business is. It's not shared with anybody, and we certainly don't talk about it with anyone. So I'd say probably don't worry about that. Most people just are not going to care, and it's not like it's being broadcasted to the entire world anyway. Now, the next step after that is we physically go and start looking at houses. So again, this is going to be a really exciting time for most people, and this is the moment that a lot of people kind of associated with going out and looking, or going out and buying a house, is going and looking at stuff. And this is really exciting. Not a whole lot of downside to this one, and depending on what kind of house that you're looking at. If you're looking for, like, let's say foreclosures, then it's gonna start bringing up some emotions, because you're gonna have to see past the mess that it currently is to appreciate what it's gonna be in the future. The biggest emotional step that I've noticed lately for buyers, at least in this market for the past couple of years, is that you don't really get a whole lot of time to make decisions in this market. Usually it's a matter of, okay, we've seen it, and you've got about 10, 20, 30 minutes to make a decision about whether you want this property or not. Because if you don't, there's going to be somebody else that does make that decision for you. So this is really tough for some people. And I've seen a number of people where they're like, well, no, I'm not going to make a decision right now. I'm going to wait a couple days. I'm going to think on it. And house is gone by that evening. And lesson learned. And then next time they are ready to rock and roll pretty quick if they see something that they want. So just know that you're probably going to have to make a decision on the quicker side in this market. It's not as intense now as it was 3-4 months ago, but it's still moving pretty quickly, and being able to make a decision within a couple hours is going to put you in the best position to win. Now, the next step after that is, once you've made the offer, you've made the decision, you've gone all out, now this is the waiting game. And this really, really sucks, okay? Because you're literally just waiting around. Usually it's a multiple offer situation, and you're having to go, okay, well, could we have done anything different? Oh my gosh, are we not going to get the house because of this tiny little thing that we requested? Should we have offered more? Oh my gosh, did we offer too less? This is where a lot of the anxiety starts coming in. And the best thing I can say, best advice I can give is, once we've made the offer, try not to think about it anymore. Okay, it's done. The shot's been fired, and we just need to write it out and see what happens. Now, the next step is having the offer accepted, and there's going to be a lot of excitement involved with this. And there's also, for some people, there's going to be this tendency to kind of be afraid and be like, oh my gosh, we won. Oh my word, how much more did we offer than everybody else? We made a big mistake, and all these emotions and self-doubt just start piling on at the same time. Best thing I can say about that, try not to overanalyze it. Remember, we still have a system and a process we have to work through here before the house is actually yours. So, if we find out the house really isn't worth what it is that we offered, usually in practice, the seller comes down to whatever price that we agreed to. And not only that, but you still have the due diligence period to go through. So for people who are excited, great, keep that energy. For those of you who are feeling a lot of fear and anxiety after your work is paid off and we actually have you under contract, then that's what I would say for that. I've actually seen buyers, I've actually been fired before for getting a buyer under contract too easily. Okay, so yes, this can be a really, you wouldn't think so, but this can be a really emotional step for a lot of people. And if it looks like it happened too quickly, then getting into the self-doubt space, and you start talking yourself into believing that this is a terrible idea and you never should have done it to begin with. After all that, now it's time for one of the most emotional parts, and that is having the inspector come over and look at the property. So you fell in love with the property, we made an offer for it, we've gone through all the work that's gone into it up to this point, and now you need the inspector to come in, and he's going to nitpick every detail about your baby. He's going to call out every little defect that's not absolutely perfect on your baby. And for some people, this is really tough. And, they walk away from the inspection just completely, head down and feeling like they're buying a lemon. For other people, they just understand, hey, we just need to take our emotion out of this and just know the inspector is here to nitpick everything, to make sure that we're getting a good house and make sure that we're not buying something that's going to turn into a money pit later with a bunch of unforeseen stuff that we couldn't see the first time that we went through to see it. So I really do recommend see the inspection period as kind of a time where you can really get a good sense for what the property is and what it is that you're getting. Try not to get too emotionally attached. Just let it be what it's going to be. Now, the next step after that is getting the inspection report back, and this can be really emotional for some people depending on how much there is on there. For some reports, I've seen the summary where it's like 2-3 pages long, and you can just feel like the buyer's tensing up when they look at it because, there's a lot on there. What I would just say is when we get the report back, it's important to just, okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's look at it and let's see, is this a long list of big items or is this a long list of really small, easy things to take care of? Because just because there's a lot of writing doesn't necessarily mean that it's all deal breaker kind of stuff. So you have to slow down a little bit and really take a look and see exactly what's on paper. Now, after we've gotten past the due diligence period, it is time to be moving on to the appraisal. There's not really a whole lot of emotion involved for the appraisal for the buyer because if it comes in high, good job, you've got instant equity. If it comes in right at what you offered, good job, you got what you asked for. And if it comes in low, then in practice, the seller comes down to whatever that new low price is. In practice, that's the way that it works. So yeah, in general, the appraisal is not really an emotional time for the buyer. Now, the time where it does start getting emotional is when we're getting closer to the closing time, and title and the lenders are just going back and forth, and occasionally they'll pop in, they'll ask for something, and they're just gone, and you don't really hear from them, but all you know is we're having to extend out, usually a couple days here and there in order to get the work done. So there's kind of some anxiety here just because it's so out of your control, but we know that's just part of the process. It's like having a baby. We know it's going to happen. We just don't know exactly when. And last but not least is when you're actually closing and going over to your property. For a lot of people, this can be kind of an emotional step for them. So just be aware of that and just really appreciate every minute that you have going into it. So this has been your unexpected emotional journey for most sellers and most buyers. I sure hope it was useful. If it has, make sure you get this video a like, do subscribe, and we'll see you next time.